Hello and welcome to Caking It With Gladys. My name is Gladys and I love cake, which I have been making for 10 years, running as a business for 6. And on the first episode of Caking It With Gladys, we're kicking things off talking all things buttercream. My aim for this episode is that if you're buying cake or enjoy eating cake, this information will provide the options of buttercream on the market whilst empowering you to make decisions for the quality and experience of your cake purchase. Like me though, if you are into making cakes as a professional, a hobby baker, or just starting your journey into baking, I trust this information will provide clarity about the subjects of buttercream in general and the various options available to pair with your cakes, plus the decisions you could make about making and using them in your cake decorating process. So what's buttercream? Simply put, buttercream in my opinion is to cake just as mayo or ketchup is to a burger. I consider buttercream a necessary accompaniment to your cake, enhancing taste and mouthfeel. Just like the various options of sauces on the market to pair with a burger, there are different options of buttercream, a few of which include Italian and Swiss meringue buttercream, French buttercream, American buttercream, Russian buttercream, and German buttercream. Others include your Ermine and cream cheese buttercream. I've counted 8 and perhaps there are more. Did you know all these options were available? And if you didn't know, well, I hope you know now. Still on the subject of buttercream, it's important to note that in the cake decorating process, you'll find buttercream is used interchangeably with the word icing or frosting, which may appear to mean the same thing but are distinctively different. So before focusing on the subject of buttercream, which is our main subject of discussion on this occasion, let's just try and gain some understanding of the cake decorating terms icing or frosting. On the Wikipedia page for icing, a distinction is made between the word ice as a verb and icing as a noun. And without having to undertake a whole English lecture, to ice as a verb denoting action means to cover or to decorate. And expanding on this a little further, icing becomes the active action of putting or spreading something. From this, one way to define icing is the action of covering a cake. So for example, if I was decorating a cake and was asked, "What are you doing?" I could simply answer, "I am icing a cake," meaning I'm decorating, covering, or spreading something on a cake. Now, icing could also be a noun denoting the name of a thing, and in this context, icing is a covering or a cover referring to something that is applied to protect. Simply put, icing as a noun is the thing providing cover on a cake, making icing a decorative element which may include your buttercream, frosting, fondant, or marzipan, to name a few. So when asked what type of icing is on a cake, a simple answer could be fondant icing, buttercream, or marzipan. From the definitions above, it is important to note that the interchangeable use of the words icing and frosting is usually in the noun forms, as both icing and frosting are used as forms of cake coverings. We'll be discussing the reasons for the interchangeable use of the terms shortly. In the meantime, let's have a closer look at what icing is and what frosting is. Defined broadly by their characteristics, icing is thin and flowy, especially as it is mixed with some liquid and cannot hold shape. It is quick to apply, often in its liquid form, and depending on viscosity may appear translucent but could become opaque as it cools down and can set hard. Frosting, however, is generally observed to be thick and is made with some sort of fat, which could either be butter or the alternative option of shortening. It is made to hold shape and can be derived by whipping. The thick nature makes it opaque. Despite the distinct characteristics of icing and frosting, a common ingredient for both can be confectioner's sugar. Now that the distinctions are made to help us gain some clarity of these common terms, a key takeaway is to remember buttercream is a type of frosting, making buttercream one of the many types of frostings available for covering cakes. Some popular frosting types may include cream cheese frosting, whipped cream frosting, meringue and marshmallow based frosting, and whipped ganache. The interchangeable use of the word frosting and icing is down to the evolution of the words and related cultural differences. For instance, the differences between how the UK and US may use icing or frosting as words may differ. Another reason may be the lack of understanding from the general public who are not in tune with the various subjects related to cake decorating. But as a baker or a decorator, what are your thoughts about the use of icing and frosting so far? With all the background information to give us context and clarity, let's talk buttercream. Buttercream is one of the most popular types of frostings used in cake decorating. Like the name suggests, buttercream is made using butter as the main fat ingredient, which provides body for consistency and texture, and it's a component ingredient for adding stability. Depending on the type of buttercream, butter is mixed with some common ingredients such as powdered sugar and flavoring to enhance taste. And again, depending on what kind of buttercream type, there is occasionally an addition of liquid to adjust the consistency and to improve texture. Buttercream is used for spreading, filling, covering, and piping onto cakes, cupcakes, and other pastries. In the process of filling and stacking cake layers, buttercream plays a key role holding the layers of cake together when filled in between cake layers. And when left to chill, it prevents the layers from shifting and sliding during the decorating process. For all the various uses of buttercream, one of its main primary function is to serve as a necessary accompaniment to your cake, enhancing taste and mouthfeel. And like the parallels drawn earlier between buttercream and burger sauces, there are various options of buttercream. So perhaps before anything, let's have a look at each to gain a deeper understanding on what type of buttercream there are on the market. Worth noting, at this point in time, there is no exact number, but so far we've counted 8. And we're starting with American buttercream, which has its origins from America in the early 90s. The earliest forms seem to differ slightly in ingredients, yet it is one of the most popular, easy to make, beginner friendly type of buttercream made from creaming butter and powdered sugar together. A choice of flavoring is added and occasionally a pinch of salt. Depending on use, a liquid of either water, milk, and cream is added to adapt texture and consistency. And when creamed to a desired smoothness, it is used for topping and filling into cakes and cupcakes. American buttercream is known for being overwhelmingly sweet in taste and mouthfeel. It is, however, versatile and adaptable to the additions of different flavor options and additional ingredients aimed at making it stable and suitable for withstanding warm weather conditions. On the downside, depending on technique, it can appear very gritty and hard to smooth over. Despite the downsides of American buttercream, for its ease to derive and use, I highly recommend this for any beginner looking to start making buttercream. The next buttercream to discuss is a preferred favorite, and this is French buttercream, a delicious creamy buttercream derived from whipping hot sugar syrup into egg yolks, which is then mixed with butter. Flavoring is added for enhancement before use. French buttercream is classed as European style buttercream, which is distinctively different from the most popular ones, which are meringue based, such as Swiss and Italian buttercreams. Like the name suggests, French buttercream is closely associated with France, a country known for its culinary peculiarities. Worth noting, the method for deriving French buttercream is closely associated with pâte à bombe, a pastry cream base derived by whipping hot sugar syrup into egg yolks. French buttercream is rich tasting, absorbs flavor better, and is intensely flavorful with a creamy mouthfeel due to the custard base. It can, however, be too buttery due to the amount of butter used, and it's known to be very unstable for covering cakes in warm temperatures. Next on the list is Italian meringue buttercream, commonly referred to as Italian buttercream. It is a European style meringue based buttercream derived from dripping hot sugar syrup into egg whites, which is then whipped to form the meringue base before butter is added. These are then mixed together to form a silky smooth buttercream known for its light texture and superior stability when used for covering cakes in warm weather temperatures. For its technique and method, it's not considered beginner friendly, hence it's the go-to type of buttercream for highly professional bakers and decorators. Swiss meringue buttercream is next and a preferred favorite, which is a European style meringue based buttercream similar to Italian buttercream in texture and mouthfeel. It is made also using the same ingredients as Italian buttercream, and unlike Italian buttercream, it uses a slightly different method of cooking the egg whites and sugar over a double boiler, also known as a bain-marie, pasteurizing the eggs to a safe temperature before this is whipped and butter is added. Swiss meringue buttercream is smooth, light in texture, and best known for being less sweet. Compared to Italian buttercream, it is not superiorly stable, but it's more stable than French buttercream and some of the other buttercreams we will be discussing. Like Italian meringue buttercream, Swiss meringue buttercream is regarded a professional standard kind of buttercream, making it slightly difficult for beginners to make. However, there have been derivatives of this buttercream such as the faux Swiss meringue buttercream, which is easier to derive. Moving on, next we have German buttercream, also known as creme mousseline, a custard-like buttercream made from a custard base mixed with butter. Ingredients include granulated sugar, egg yolks, cornstarch or flour for thickening, butter, and some sort of flavoring. The custard is first derived by adding sugar, egg yolks, cream, and cornstarch over warm heat, cooking slowly until a thick consistency is achieved. This is then left to cool and set. The custard base is brought back to be whipped before butter is added and flavoring to make the buttercream. Unlike some of the buttercreams discussed earlier, German buttercream has a custard-like texture which tastes creamy and is slightly heavy in mouthfeel. It is stable at room temperature but cannot sustain in warm temperatures due to its excess fats of yolks, cream, and butter. German buttercream is not too sweet as the base custard allows for the use of less sugar, making this buttercream less dependent on sugar for stability compared to American buttercream, which relies heavily on sugar for its stable nature. Whilst the main ingredients for the custard usually calls for cornstarch, flour can be used in its place for better results. The nature of the custard base makes this buttercream adaptable to much flavor and is versatile in use. The making of this buttercream, however, involves a few different processes, making it time consuming and perhaps less beginner friendly. The next buttercream comes in the form of Ermine buttercream, also known as boiled milk or cooked flour buttercream. It is one of the oldest forms of buttercream dating back to the 1900s and is commonly associated as a pairing to the earliest red velvet cakes to be made. It is a classic buttercream made from a custard or pudding-like base of boiled flour, sugar, and milk, which is similar to the German buttercream in process. The roux is first derived as a custard and left to cool before it is brought back to be whipped with butter added to a light fluffy texture which is similar in taste to whipped cream. Flavoring is added for enhancement, after which the buttercream is used as desired. Ermine buttercream is very stable, less sweet, and has a very smooth mouthfeel. The use of flour for the roux has no undesired impact on the buttercream, leaving the flour base or pudding base rather neutral and flavorless. However, due to its texture, it is difficult to use for a desired polished cake covering. Hence, for this reason, Ermine buttercream is most suitable for rustic looking and unpolished looking cakes. Coming in next is Russian buttercream, a 2-ingredient buttercream, or perhaps 3 if counting a pinch of salt and flavoring. Its origins is generally unclear. However, Russian buttercream is a simple beginner-friendly type buttercream to make, which yields a rich, silky, smooth mouthfeel. It is first made by beating butter until light and fluffy. Condensed milk is added gradually until both ingredients are mixed together to form a smooth consistency. A pinch of salt can be added to balance the taste and desired flavoring added for enhancement. Like most of the buttercreams earlier discussed, Russian buttercream is great for filling, covering, topping cakes and cupcakes. Its easy, fuss-free process makes it a great option for anyone starting out on their buttercream journey and looking for a beginner-friendly type of buttercream. It can also be adapted into chocolate, caramel, and coffee flavors with same smooth and flavorful mouthfeel. Whilst great in taste and process, Russian buttercream is very unstable and doesn't hold well in hot weather situations. And similar to our next buttercream in terms of instability, we're talking cream cheese buttercream. Made from a combination of cream cheese, butter, and icing sugar, cream cheese frosting or buttercream is a rich tasting tangy buttercream commonly paired with red velvet, carrot cake, and some variations of chocolate cake. It has a great balance of sweetness and tang. It is also adaptable and pairs well with add-ons for flavor enhancement, thereby making it a great option of buttercream for desserts like cinnamon rolls and spiced cakes. Worth noting, the consistency and spreadability of cream cheese buttercream is hugely influenced by the type of cream cheese used. For example, when full-fat block-style cream cheese is used, the consistency is thicker and looks more stable. If swapped for whipped or spreadable cream cheese, the consistency of the buttercream is loose and too soft. Now that's a summary of all the commonly known types of buttercreams known. However, the outlier in my research for buttercream is Korean buttercream, which is a variation of either Swiss or Italian meringue buttercream. So I'll skip that, but I'd like to add, whilst these 8 types of buttercreams are popularly known, buttercream options are not limited to just these 8 and are far more in number when considering the variations of each when adapted in process and technique, with extra additions aimed at making these buttercreams stable. For example, an easy way to make Swiss meringue buttercream beginner friendly is to consider the faux Swiss meringue buttercream derived from using pasteurized eggs and icing sugar instead of raw eggs cooked over warm heat. This makes for a streamlined process which makes it more achievable and beginner friendly. On the same note, American buttercream, though comprising of icing sugar and butter, can be adapted in various ways to control the sweetness. The normal ratio of butter to sugar, being a 1:2 ratio, can be reduced to a 1:1, making the buttercream less sugary and great for filling cakes, yet can be unstable for covering cakes in hot weather conditions. With all that in mind, the objectives of the use of your buttercream has to be clearly outlined to inform the option you eventually settle for. Now let's talk the stability of buttercream, which is a common pain point for most cake makers. A common goal though as a cake decorator is to yield a buttercream, especially one that will sustain in warmer temperatures, hence the recurring theme of buttercream stability in the different options discussed above. I hold the view though that while stability is important, any conditions that may optimize stability whilst compromising on quality, taste and mouthfeel isn't worth the effort. Hence, seeking the most stable buttercream at all costs hasn't always been my goal. However, considering the various options of buttercream on a scale of stability, Italian meringue buttercream is most superior, followed closely by Ermine buttercream and Swiss meringue buttercream, leaving just enough room for the rest to follow, with French and Russian buttercream options being the least stable. There is a scientific process contributing to the stability of any type of buttercream and the role butter plays as a key ingredient. Butter has a melting point of 90 degrees Fahrenheit, equivalent to about 32 to 35 degrees C, which is just above the average room temperature, therefore making buttercream with butter as a key ingredient unstable in direct sunlight or warm temperatures. To make buttercream more stable, some adjustments can be made by adding ingredients aimed at stabilizing the buttercream, such as swapping butter for shortening or adding meringue powder to certain types of buttercream, such as American buttercream. With that in mind, adjustments can be greatly limiting by the buttercream type, technique, adaptability, and general goals for taste and mouthfeel. Hence, I dare to add, there isn't one buttercream solving every and any problem, but you could make your choice based on your own goals and preferences. That said, Italian buttercream earns the markets for not just being stable, but is great tasting. It is also used for deriving polished, clean cakes compared to Ermine, which, even though stable, isn't great for polished finishes to your cakes. In terms of stability, Italian meringue buttercream is super technical to make, involving a few different processes that may be time consuming. Russian buttercream may be easier and simpler in process, but also unstable in higher temperatures. On that note, I'll add, when it comes to buttercream, you choose your battles. And on that note, let's talk coloring buttercream. Most of the buttercream options discussed above are derived in plain off-white hues. Hence, coloring buttercream is an essential part of the cake decorating process. This can be creative, aimed at highlighting the themes and preferences included in the cake design process. Different buttercreams can be colored using a variety of food colorings and techniques depending on goals and design preferences. Food coloring options range from liquid to gel, oil-based paste, powdered food coloring, and natural colorings. The use of each is influenced hugely by availability and access, preference and how each food coloring type mixes well with each buttercream. American buttercream will take on a range of food coloring options but may be affected slightly in consistency if higher amounts of liquid coloring is added. Gel and paste colors are known to have depth and saturation, which may work best in meringue-based emulsions such as Swiss and Italian buttercream. Due to the high yellow tones of French buttercream, achieving certain colors such as a crisp white color may just be impossible without affecting the taste and mouthfeel of the buttercream. Important to note that food safety regulations also influences the amount of coloring in a specific amount of buttercream, and this may differ from location to location. So when it comes to coloring your buttercream, having fun is key, but also adhering to regulations may be the safest thing to do. I receive a lot of questions about how to store buttercream safely and properly, and the answer isn't very straightforward, but here is a general guidance for storing buttercream. It is normally recommended that buttercream is frozen or refrigerated in conditions that may assist in preserving the taste, quality and mouthfeel. For this reason, ensure your buttercream is preserved in an environment devoid of strong smelling pungent substances, as these would be absorbed into your buttercream, thereby affecting the smell, taste and mouthfeel. Normally, it is recommended buttercream once made is dished into a clean airtight container, sealed before refrigeration. With that as my strongest recommendation, buttercream can be stored refrigerated for weeks or frozen for months. The choice of how long is completely dependent on your preferences and circumstances, but don't forget to have a look at your expiry date of your ingredients. I prefer though to make my buttercream for use a day or two later, which allows the flavors to settle and intensify. Whilst I have room to refrigerate my buttercream for longer, I choose not to, as this is not suitable for my circumstances. But faced with tiers of cakes to get through a particular busy week, I could make my buttercream a week in advance, which is generally useful for time management. Generally, buttercream can be frozen for months as noted earlier and will still yield same quality if stored in appropriate conditions. And whilst refrigerating and freezing buttercream can be time saving, it can also be tricky to follow the exact processes for thawing and whipping the buttercream back to the desired consistency. Best practice recommendation is for the buttercream to be left on a countertop to come to room temperature before whipping if needed. From frozen though, the buttercream can be thawed slowly in a refrigerator or again on a countertop. In recent times, the microwave has become a handy equipment for defrosting buttercream, which can be used following specific instructions for each buttercream type. Better be careful with the microwave though, as it has a tendency to melt your buttercream, rendering it oily and runny, which is no use for buttercream. Our discussion on buttercream is nearly over, but I hope you drew some value from our objectives derived earlier. Whilst this may seem like a very long session of talking all things buttercream, this is just a scratch of the surface, and there will be more about buttercream to come in the future. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what your preference of buttercream is, the difficulties you're having, and some questions which I hope to answer in future episodes. I'll see you on the next.